from Just Car People Things. This is Mike tuning in today to do a oil change on our 2023 1LE Camaro SS parked here on the left. And the first thing we need to do is get our S2000 out of the way. As much as we love this car, it is something we typically drive even less frequently than our Camaro, and as a result was up on the lift. So lowered it down, backing it out here. You'll notice it's on the Science of Speed Gold Advans. A little bit of exhaust and intake work. Always sounds great and looks great. So one of the things that we like to do is a lot of our own service. It's a big part of having this garage and having the lift and kind of the whole setup that you see here. And the lift is a relatively recent addition in the last year or so. And to be honest with you, I'm not going back. There's that Camaro start up. What a great sound. We'll have a little more of that as we get further into the video. But we're just going to roll it out and take a crack at doing an oil change. You can see the oil and the filter are sitting in front in the foreground here, waiting for the Camaro to get up on the lift. We had a few different options for a lift. We selected a 4-post, largely because it made a little bit more sense just for storing vehicles and sort of having the garage space that we do. The doors you're looking at are 14 by 10, so while there is room in here to park 3 cars wide, it is a little bit easier with the lift. So steady as she goes up on the lift there, and that should do it right about there. And we'll just jump out, throw it into park. Always set the parking brake, actually put it in first gear. This is a manual, and then set the parking brake as well. Make sure that we're good to go, that we're all squared up, and get back forward here to start lifting it up on the lift. The 1LE takes an amazing 10 quarts of oil, something worth mentioning, and it certainly can be a struggle a little bit on these cars. The amount of oil gets a little bit nutty sometimes, and certainly is a lot to deal with. Oh, hold on, I forgot the S2000. And we're good. So it's been a little bit rainy today. Both cars are clean. I don't want to have them sitting outside, otherwise I would have just left the Honda out. We've had the Honda for several years now, and we've really enjoyed our time with it, and I can't tell you how great it is to have one. But we'll get the Camaro lifted up here, and there she goes off to the races. This is a 110 volt 4-post lift, and it's got safety catches. You'll hear them clang. There's a little metal bar there across the bottom that pops as it jumps into each one of those latches that hang down. You can see kind of the slotted metal vertical pieces that are inside the channels there on the right, kind of near where I'm standing. So it takes probably about 30 to 45 seconds to get the vehicle all the way up and lifted into the correct position. I don't normally lift it all the way up. I like having the vehicle a little bit lower, closer to kind of eye level when I'm working on it. I could probably go up another couple more clicks all the way up to this is the higher lift that comes with a little bit more lift, probably another 6 to 12 inches of extra height to let you park an SUV under it or park something longer on it. It's an XLT lift. Which is extra long and tall, to be able to accommodate that. It's probably overkill to lift 8,000 pounds. The Camaro is pretty hefty at about 3,800, but certainly not anywhere close to that number. And we've had our SUV on it without issues and done work on others' cars, and it's been pretty great. Certainly saves a lot of time, certainly beats working on your back, and also is a lot safer here as we'll conduct kind of a quick lower that drops it down onto those safety catches. You can see it's secure there. We're not going anywhere. Everything looks good. All right, we're good to go. So we'll do a quick evaluation. Just make sure we're grabbing all the right parts here and come back once we are set to go. So now we're walking out. We're going to shift to the POV format for this part of the video. There's our S2000. There's our lift. We've got our light run up underneath. We've got a little trouble light there. And also have a battery-powered light up underneath here too. We've got a large 15-quart drain pan that's empty. This car is, again, 10 quarts. It's a lot of oil. We've got our shelf here. This little shelf kind of engineered up. It's a piece of melamine, kind of plastic coated fiberboard. Works perfect for this. You can wipe it down when you inevitably spill oil on it. And one thing I like to do when I'm underneath here right before the oil change is just do a basic quick inspection. So grab a flashlight, a good flashlight, get up underneath, look for anything obvious, anything broken, anything that might be making noise, anything leaking, and just work your way down the car as you go. It takes maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and this is a chance for you to head off problems well in advance of them becoming serious. This is our Magic E-Diff. We've changed the diff fluid on that, and just checking to make sure it hasn't started leaking out the drain there. Checking all of our rear suspension components, and making sure there's nothing kind of out of place here. Taking a good eyeball at the tires and their tread. These are pretty sticky Goodyear tires that tend to get eaten up pretty quick. And we'll just head back forward on the car, take a look at the exhaust. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Coming through. And here we are with our little workspace here. We're going to be spending some time in this space and getting going. So we've got a 15 millimeter socket. We're going to give it a good yank, and it looks like the drain plug's a little bit, well, we're going to get in the right direction. Looks like the drain plug's a little bit tight. So we've got a quick solution for that without causing too much trouble. I don't have a ton of leverage from the angle that I'm at, so what I like to do is sometimes I'll just get a little mallet like this and just give it a couple good taps. And you don't really need to use a ton of force. If you're using a ton of force here, I would back off. This is really more just a method to sort of break it loose. Sometimes when this system, the bolt heat cycles, it gets a little bit tight. So now that it's loose, we're going to come in just by hand, remove the drain plug, and of course run the risk of dumping oil all over the place. I don't have anything else in the system open up top. I haven't removed the oil fill plug or anything. This oil is very thin. It's a zero weight oil. So that means when it's cold, it's almost like water. And you can see how liquid that oil is even when it's, relatively cool. So we'll just dep that off. Of course, I dropped my rag. There we go. All right, so always have a couple grease rags handy. Make sure that you're ready to wipe everything down. Do a good inspection on these. You'll notice the Camaro's drain plugs actually have a black rubber seal inside of them. You do not need a crush washer for this, which is kind of nice. You just don't have to worry about that. It will mate up kind of naturally with the bottom of the housing and the oil pan. And from here, we're just going to start draining some oil out. Again, inspecting that drain plug to make sure we're not seeing anything scary on it. No oily metal chunks or anything that looks like glitter. We want to be very conscientious of. But overall, this just looks like used oil. It's got probably about 7,000 miles on it. Our oil life monitor is down to about 15%, which is usually where I get into the environment where I want to make a change on it. And I have been topping it off. It's eaten probably about a quart over those 7,000 miles. I do keep an eye on it. Probably every other or every fill up or every other fill up at the gas station. I'll pop the hood and check all that. How's traffic? Not bad. Okay. Sometimes when I'm bored in these projects, I'll spin around and keep an eye on what's going on behind me. We're getting through the drain process here, and we might just jump ahead a little bit because this is kind of like watching paint dry. So at this point, we're going to loosen the filter that's on there right now, and we like to use a compression wrench for this. It's probably the easiest way to do this without causing too much trouble because it's really not in a great spot. And it would be helpful if I also put it in the right direction. So one of the things I tend to tell people to avoid is if you can avoid it, especially when installing an oil filter, don't use an oil filter wrench that's the actual, looks like a socket that goes on the back of the filter. I tend to find that in a lot of cases people will over tighten in that case. They're not bad for removing, they're actually really easy for removing, but I find this works in both directions because it's kind of hard to over tighten an oil filter, especially with this motion. When you're putting one on, and in this environment, in this angle, and given the kind of oil pressures this car can run, I like to actually put one on and get that last little snug with that later. So you can start to see the light flickering through the oil as it drains out there, and that's a good sign that we're pretty much empty at this point. There's really no real oil left in that side of the pan. we're going to come down here now and prep our oil filter. So I had a chance to throw the date on our oil filter. It's an AC Delco factory filter. Those are about $5 or $6. And this, of course, is our Mobil 1 Supercar 0W40 in Dexos R spec. This is a little bit confusing on the 23s. They've changed the nomenclature on this oil, the naming conventions multiple times, and it's a little bit, how do I say, not easy to find. But we'll toss a little bit in the filter just to make sure that filter media inside is wet. You'll see that it sort of drains down into it, and that's the filter media inside it there absorbing that oil. So we'll just give that a good round, and we'll count that towards our total amount of oil when we go to put it in. So you'll notice that oil drained almost completely down in there, and we put probably about 1/4 of a quart in there, all in. And the next thing we'll do is come up, swipe a finger on the used oil here, and just put a film of it around the top of the seal there, and that allows that gasket to seat more effectively and not to leak. It's kind of an old trick. It's one of those things that you just sort of have to do. I don't know if you even have to do it anymore, but it's still something as a habit I do. But that lets you go through and get that all prepped. We're going to get all this stuff out of the way here to be able to start loosening that filter a little bit, see how loose it is. And I'm going to commit a grave sin here that I'm going to have to clean up, which is loosening this just a little bit too much, and that broke the seal on it, and oil just starts raining out of it. There was actually a lot more oil stuck in there than I realized, and now I'm in a battle between the drain pan and the where the drain pan drains. So dumb mistake on my part. Got to torque it back down now. I wouldn't be one of these projects without getting oil rained in you. This wouldn't be an issue if you had a bigger drain pan. Oh god, I'm just coated. This is stupid every single time. And now I got to clean up probably about 8 or 10 ounces of oil there and wipe down all of my tools. But we're pretty much done here. It's just starting to barely trickle out, and that I think is about as good as we're going to get here on getting the oil out of the car. I'm sure you could let it sit for another hour and probably get another couple ounces out of it. But we're putting 10 quarts into it, and so in the grand scheme, a few ounces of oil really is used oil in the system is really not going to be an issue. So now we're going to move on to that, actually getting that oil filter loosened, which of course I've completely slicked in oil, and now can't really get it loose. This is just a mess. And as always, the last time I did this, it went flawlessly, and I barely got oil on my hands. And now, of course, the second time that I'm doing this and I'm filming it for everyone, I'm bumbling all over the place and dumping oil all over the place. So that's just how it works when you do these type of projects, and you just got to be prepared for that. All right, well, we've almost got that filter dropped off there. You want to make sure to not actually drop the filter. That's what my right hand there is kind of holding the filter up, so when it unthreads fully and pops loose right there, you don't just drop that oil-filled filter all over the place. So we'll just let that drain out. I will get the blood off my hands here as best I can, and we'll go through and just let that drain for a couple minutes here and get it a little bit cleaned up. So now we've wiped that whole area down. You can see it's just barely dripping oil out of there, and that is the point at which you're good to screw your new filter on. Be very, very careful in this part of the process on any car. You see how easy that threaded on there, and once it went on, it just almost spun itself on? That's a sign that you have threaded the filter correctly. If you get resistance, or you start having to put a lot of torque on it until you hit the seal against the actual housing, back off, don't cross thread it. That'll be a nightmare. Ooh, that's kind of heavy. 10 quarts of oil, I forget that's about 15-20 pounds of oil, and it's pretty liquid. So, all right, we'll wipe our board down here and go through the final process of snugging all this stuff down. Obviously, my hands are unfortunately soaked in oil, so it's going to be a little tough for me to actually get good hand tightness torque on that filter there. And so we're going to go to this compression system here, compression wrench, and just wipe off a little bit of other excess oil that we've dripped around. We don't want that there. There's the oil cooler for the car just ahead of that, that big cooling block there, which goes up then to the front of the car. All right, we'll get a few spins on here. Try not to touch the catalytic converter there, which is actually still quite hot. Even though the car was only running for a couple minutes the cat heats up very, very quickly on modern cars, and that's still pretty toasty there by my left hand. So that feels good. That's got good tightness on it. You can see I got, good torque on it, nice and solid. And now just last but not least, we're going to come in and just get our, in the right direction, get our bolt tightened down. So we're going to go to a fast forward mode here and just show you dropping the car down on the lift. And you raise it up, you pull that safety catch for all 4 of the safety catches, and then the vehicle just drops right down. It's pretty straightforward. And I can't say enough, again, for the handiness of having a lift. It is so helpful. And let me tell you, if you're debating about what to spend some money on in your garage, it is absolutely worth it. Well, now we've got the hood open, we'll take a look at our super fun LT-V8 6.2 liters, which is the heart of this fun Camaro SS 1LE. We'll get our oil fill off, get a couple quarts queued up here to go into the motor, and make everybody happy. So one thing about these LT motors, in the manual Camaro SSs and the 1LEs, they are hand built. There's a person's name underneath that plaque. There's our first quart of the 0W40. You see we've got probably, we probably only put maybe a quarter of a quart in that oil filter. Make sure your funnel is clean. You don't want to be pouring dirty stuff through your funnel into your oil and into your engine. And we'll get a little rhythm going here where we can pick one up and kind of let this one drain and go from there. But always want to check and make sure you're not spilling, making sure the funnel that's getting is effectively getting the oil into the motor. There's no fun at all than to take these $12 to $13 a quart jugs of oil and dump them whole onto the ground. That's a really annoying experience. So we'll queue a few up here. I think I spent about $130 on this oil shipped, and then had a filter. The filters are about $5 or $6 from AC Delco. But we'll fast forward here and jump ahead to our last quart or two and just kind of show you the process for topping off. This really isn't too complicated. You just make sure you put the right number of quarts in. And here we are on quart about number 9 right there. And that's just about everything we need out of that quart. And you see it's just like water. You just kind of get shaking it out of there. And there's our bin. Hey, shoots and scores. So I'm going to take this full quart, and I'm actually going to go over. I've got some filler quarts that I've been using, and that one's full. And then this guy right here is about a half a quart. So we'll put 9.5 quarts, maybe a little less, in the car, and it's supposed to be spec'd for 10. And at that point, we'll fire it up and just make sure we got good pressure. We're not leaking underneath the car. That everything is circulating appropriately, and we'll do a little check. Sometimes every car is a little bit different. Sometimes cars are very particular. Hey, shoots and scores again. Sometimes cars are real particular, and there's always a half quart buried in a gallery somewhere. And sometimes cars are a little the opposite, where there'll be a half quart short every time, even when you fill it to factory fill. So we'll take a quick look here and make sure we're registering oil on the dipstick itself. You always just want to make sure after you've done this, especially with an oil that's this fluid, you're going to want to make sure that you're at least seeing some oil on the dipstick, even if it's a little low. Yeah, so we've got some oil on there, and I think we're going to be good to go fire it up. I can tell you that startup sound absolutely never gets old. It is one of the best parts, having just the exhaust valves open on the valved exhaust and letting it fire up. So we let it idle there for a few seconds, and you can see we're kind of right at the bottom of the dipstick. We probably could add another half to a full quart, which would really be closer to probably 10 1/4 if we added a full quart. And we'll go back and forth. We'll check a couple times. We'll see what we get. And one thing I'll mention about an oil volume this large, this isn't an exact science. If you're a 1/4 quart high or 1/4 quart low, it's not the end of the world. I would be a little more conscientious of it if I was, say, going to a track day tomorrow, which I am not. But if you're just going to daily drive it, I think you're totally fine to just make sure that it's close, and as long as it's reading somewhere in the normal range on the dipstick, you're all set to go. So these motors tend to be fairly forgiving generally. So let's just do a quick check here and see what's filtered its way down to the actual oil pan, which can take a few minutes too. So that's something to mention. Don't panic and start adding quarts and quarts of oil. If you get it just over the full mark. All right, well, you can't really see it there, but it was just under the full mark. So we're going to just go ahead and add the last skosh of this quart here. That's probably about 1/3 of a quart. So I think in total we probably put in 10 1/4, 10 1/2 almost. But again, if you come in a little bit high here, not the end of the world. And shoots and scores again. That's 3 points. I'll take it. Just finish off that last little quart there. Don't want any to go to waste if we can avoid it. You can just see it sort of spitting out of there. And that's pretty much our oil change process for one of these. We'll recycle all those oil containers. We'll get everything buttoned up here, drain the funnel out, wipe it out good. Make sure we don't have any leaks or drips going down the side of the motor. It's no fun seeing the oil get onto the headers and smoke off. But this is a process. Obviously, the lift makes it way, way easier if you don't have a lift. This is a little bit more complex of a process, but a dealer is probably going to charge you several $100s easily for this oil change. We've just gotten away with doing it ourselves for about $135 versus probably $200. So that adds up over the life of the car. Maybe doesn't pay for the lift, but you think about all the other work you can do on the lift, and it starts to shake out over time. So we're full up. We're looking good. We're going to drop the hood, and that was that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed checking in here with us at Just Car People Things, and if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. Hope that you guys can like and subscribe and enjoy some of these types of videos that we get to do here in our garage, and of course, enjoy the look of that S2000.